Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, joined by my friends and co-hosts, Mehrob Fatemi and Nolan Jambor. Welcome back. I was sick all last week. I apologize. Should have given you a heads up, but we are back here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday talking all things sports. It's been a huge week. We saw, of course, a World Series champion get crowned. Congratulations to the Dodgers last week. The first and second now college football playoff rankings are here. We'll talk about them, our reactions, who we have in the playoffs, and much more tonight. We'll go over the big firings. Nico Harrison gone in Dallas. Only about, what would you say, guys, 6 months too late at this point. He should have been gone in February after that trade. Also, Brian Daboll out in New York. We'll talk about the implications of that, where he might end up in the offseason and what's going on with the Giants. Before we touch on gambling, the probe going around the MLB, big stuff coming out from the NBA. We talked about that earlier in our show last week, but a whole bunch of stuff going on. We are going to get into the nitty-gritty, the big news stories from around the world of sports, and we're going to start off in college football. Not even an hour ago, the new college football playoff rankings were officially released, guys. So let's take a look. Let's take a little gander at what's going on with these college football rankings. It is pretty much the same at the top. You have the same top four, top five teams. The first big shakeup, Nolan, Texas Tech into number 6. That is a team that just took care of business against a really good BYU squad, a BYU team that could still find their way into the playoffs here if we're not careful. So do not sell your stock in the BYU Cougars, but that was utter domination from Texas Tech. Talk to me a little bit about them. Are they worthy of that 6th spot, or what's your take on the top 5?
Well, first off, I'll start with the top 5. The top 5 I really do like. Obviously, Ohio State's going to be the number 1 team. They're the number 1 team in the country. They're dominant. They will. If they go back-to-back, I wouldn't be surprised, but with college football, you never know. But, yeah, Ohio State at 1 makes sense. Indiana, coming off that almost upset win in almost at loss against Penn State in Happy Valley this weekend. That was a crazy game, Not the best game out of Hernandez. Out of the quarterback from Indiana. Sorry, I can't forget his name, but it's Kevin Hernandez. But, it was a great game. I mean, Penn State played great, kind of trying to figure the program out, almost beat Indiana. Couldn't get it done. Great game, though. Then, obviously, we have Texas A&M, who's probably my favorite team to win the SEC, in my opinion. I think they're just that good. Alabama and Georgia round up the top 5. Alabama has really, I don't know, they kind of found themselves with a new head coach. They've gotten out of the post-Saban era. They figured it out, what's going on over there, and they got it working out. And Georgia, they've also just, it's Georgia. They've been dominant the past 5 seasons now. They're going to stay dominant. But Texas Tech, let's touch on Texas Tech real quick. Texas Tech coming in the number 6 seed in this ranking and, just the 6th team in the country, and I think they completely deserve it. They have played a few good teams over the course of this year. First off, their first ranked game of the year against Utah, where they honestly decimated. What?
Smoked them, absolutely.
Smoked them 34-10. I mean, that was their first good opponent of the year, and they came out with a statement win. That was kind of like a make or break point for Texas Tech and for Utah as well. Utah obviously still being a great team. I think they're still ranked right now, I believe, in the top 20, somewhere in the top 25, like the upper 20s. But they came out, smoked them. Then they got that upset loss against ASU. ASU has been a really weird team this year, but ASU being able to go beat Texas Tech, very surprising to most people. Only lost by 4 points, 26-22, so that was close. But then with a huge statement win against BYU. This was also their most important game of the year besides their Utah game at the start of the year. I think they went out the rest of this year going, only losing 1 game because they play UCF, and West Virginia. And I think both those games are completely winnable. And honestly, I'd be surprised if this team falls out of the top 8. I think this team can absolutely win the rest of the next 2 games. And honestly, they'll be a playoff team again. Or not again, for the first time. They completely deserve it. Great season so far. Great defense. And just phenomenal. They really came out of nowhere this year. And I think they will be the lowest seed this year, like an 8 seed.
Yeah, I think the top 8 teams pretty much locked. If they win out, the top 8 teams are going to be the top 8 teams. Now, of course, anything can happen in college football. You never know who's going to win any given Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whenever they play football, right? Anything can happen in these games. These are big games, these are big rivalry games that are coming up. This is the meat of the schedule as we get down the stretch. But then you get to some really interesting teams. There, in my opinion, is one open spot in the college football playoffs. I think the top 8 get in. I think Notre Dame gets in if they win out. They're ranked number 9 in the country in both the AP and the college football poll. Their losses so far have been to the 3rd-ranked team in the country in Texas A&M and a good Miami team who stumbled one too many times to be ranked this high. I've seen a lot of people say, why isn't Miami above Notre Dame? You have to respect head-to-head. But then you also have to look at the full body of work. Miami's resume with a loss to SMU, still a very good football team. I don't want to, put down SMU too much. They're a very good team. But Miami just has lost 2 games that they shouldn't have lost to Louisville as well, both in the ACC. So they're probably not going to make the playoffs. I'm throwing that criticism off the table. The resumes don't quite add up. But after Notre Dame, you have to put in conference champions, which we'll get to in a second. I don't think the ACC gets any title bids. I don't think they get any playoff bids at all. Duke, a team that can still win. If they ended up winning the ACC, which if they win out, they very well could, would be 8-4. 8-4 is not a playoff team. That opens it up for 2 group of 5 spots, which I think is going to happen. South Florida, JMU get in there in that scenario. But then there's also that one extra spot. And Nolan, I want to hear your thoughts on this, everything that I've really gone about there. Notre Dame, if they open it up, there's a whole nother spot. There's 2 more spots. Right now, that extra spot would be filled by Texas. But is Texas really a team that you think should get into the college football playoffs with the way that they started their season and the kind of unconvincing wins that they've had? Is it Oklahoma? Do you think BYU should still get an at-large spot? What about Vanderbilt coming out of the SEC? There's going to be 1 or 2 open spots, and there's not really 1 or 2 teams that I think really deserve to fill it right now.
Yeah, before we get into that, how about JMU? How about JMU?
Shout out JMU.
That's your alumni, man. Give them some. Get in there. No one. I would never thought I'd be seeing JMU in a possible 2025, 2026 playoff talks, but here we are, all for it. Talk about Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Like I was saying before the show, they only have 2 losses. Granted, their 2 losses are to, at the time, the number 4 seed Miami, number 5 seed Miami, and the time number 16 A&M, they lost by 1 point, lost to Miami by 3. Those are both hard losses to start the season. And at the time, I still kind of am, not really believing in Notre Dame. I feel like that they don't really have a strong enough schedule to make themselves a true playoff contender. Yeah, they win games, but looking at their team, okay, they beat Purdue, they beat Arkansas, they beat Boise State, they did beat USC. Don't get me wrong, that's a great win. USC has really proven themselves to be a good team this year. They have a great offense, and even though their weak side, defense has never been USC's strong suit. They have a decent defense this year. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if maybe USC is one of those playoff spots. Probably not. But, if they can manage, scrape up a few more, finish the year off strong, I think they end the year off, I believe, 9-3, 8-4, I believe. Yeah, they win out. If they win out, they'll be have 2 losses. They'll be 10-2. Maybe they'll be a playoff team. You never know. there's a group of 5 teams, like you said. I was really hoping Memphis would be one of those group of 5 teams. They were really looking strong there for a little while, and this kind of fell off the face of the earth. Louisville, I was really high on them at the start of the year. I believe you were too, Jeremy.
I was a big Louisville guy, yeah.
We're big on Louisville and Clemson. Look how both those turned out. ACC doesn't count. They won't get a playoffs. SMU, yeah. ACC won't get one. I'd be surprised if they do. Even if Duke is 8-4, they won't get one. I don't know. This playoff spot is really weird right now, but at the end of the day, do I believe Notre Dame deserves a playoff spot? If they win out, they deserve, in my opinion, a low tier playoff spot. I don't think they should be anything higher than a 7th or 8th seed. I think they should be the bottom 10 or 11. Great, yeah, okay. I know people aren't gonna like that. That's just how I think about it. I think they didn't beat the good players. They beat USC, but they didn't beat the two teams that actually mattered at the start of the year. And those are the two teams that were their hardest. Granted, those are the first two games of the year, so getting the rust off, they only lost by 4 points combined. But still, that's just how I think about it. And then the group of five, and those two extra spots. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to put. SMU, obviously, we talked about them. Maybe Pitt, doubt it, but Pitt's up there. Pitt's playing pretty good right now. They're playing good ball. There's a lot of good teams out there, but I really honestly think if USC could win out, I think it will be probably USC and probably like SMU.
Yeah, if USC wins out, they're going to be able to take down Oregon, crucially, later on in their schedule. That would be a massive win for them, and that would take Oregon out of the playoffs most likely. They'd also take down Iowa, another ranked opponent, and finish off with UCLA. So if the Trojans find a way to win out, I think they absolutely find their way into the playoffs. But again, that would just be swapping Oregon for USC. Still leaves that open spot in the air. My take on it right now, I give the nod to BYU. They took out a really good team in Utah. Utah, one of those really underrated teams in the Big 12. I think the BYU's got a real shot at getting that last open spot, that 10 seed in my playoffs right now. Mehrob, what's going on with your mind as far as college football goes as we reach the last couple weeks of the season?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I think pretty much you guys have pretty much summed it up, I'd say. The top 8, I think, are pretty much solidified here going into the college football playoff happening in the next month or so, locking in the next month. The only thing I will say about USC, Nolan, because I was taking a look at their schedule, I think that loss to Notre Dame might have solidified. Unless they can beat Oregon, they would have to beat Oregon, and then that throws a whole other wrench into the situation. But the way they lost that spot to get into the playoff was when they lost that game to Notre Dame a couple weeks ago, I'd say. But other than that, I think the rest of the schedule is set. I think Notre Dame sneaks in unless USC can beat Oregon, and then we'll see what happens there. There's 3 weeks left in the season. There's still a lot that can happen here.
There's plenty of time for chaos. There's no doubt about that. There's plenty of time for so much to go down in college football. Notre Dame, like you said, yeah, big win over USC. That's something to keep an eye on. I think that's one of those, that's going to be the one win that they kind of hang their hat on. A date against Pitt this week. If they're able to win that game, that's going to be another big boost in the resume. Pitt ranked right now. They were not ranked last week. They're getting a lot of buzz, but the ACC kind of cannibalizing itself. I'm going to take you through my playoff rankings right now, and you let me know what you think of it. Number 1, and this is projecting towards the end of the season, the winner of the Big Ten, the number 1 seed, Ohio State, with a perfect 13-0 record. That could all come crashing down with a loss against Michigan, which could cause another chaos scenario to unfold. But I'm penciling Ohio State in as an undefeated champion. Number 2, Texas A&M. They also win their conference over Alabama, who's going to be right behind them. The 3 and 4 seed, the loser of those games, Indiana and Alabama. Indiana 3, Alabama 4. This is where it starts to get interesting. I think Georgia's a really good team. They have to take on Texas. If they beat Texas, that eliminates them from playoff contention. Texas isn't going to make the playoffs, right? That's just how it's going to work. Georgia at 5. Number 6, we're going with Texas Tech. Same order right now as the top 6, but I think they win out. They win their conference, and the Tortillas are going to the playoffs. The 7 seed Ole Miss, as long as they take care of business, they will be fine. They'll find their way in. They're not going to be in a championship game, which in a way kind of helps them out when it comes to the playoffs a little bit, because that's a game that they're not going to lose. Now, if they win it, obviously it helps them a little bit more. Oregon at 8. That's the top 8 that we talked about, kind of locked in their positions. I've got Notre Dame here at number 9. I think they win out. I don't think there's another game on their schedule that's really going to give them a lot of trouble, other than maybe this Pitt game. But their coach, Pat Narduzzi, came out today and started talking about, we don't really need to win this game. We could lose 110-10 and it wouldn't matter. I don't think Pitt's going to win this game. That's if that's the way your coach is talking, I don't think they're going to win this game. But the 10 seed is where I said things get kind of crazy, BYU is my last at-large bid. They get that 10 spot. They get it over Texas. They get it over Vandy, over Georgia Tech, over Oklahoma, teams like that. I'm leaning towards BYU because I think they can win out the remainder of their games on the schedule. I don't see anything too difficult. They have the head-to-head over Utah. That's a tiebreaker. Texas is going to lose to Georgia, and I just don't think they're going to give the nod to Vandy, as good as Vandy is. I think they keep it with BYU with the way that they have their rankings right now. But that leads us to the last two spots. I've already kind of spoiled it a little bit. I don't think the ACC gets in because I'm projecting Duke to win the ACC. I think this is a really good Duke Blue Devils team. They just keep on stumbling at a conference for some reason. This all changes if Georgia Tech wins. Georgia Tech is the only one that can win the ACC that will get in over JMU and USF, who get those last two spots in my book. JMU 11, USF at 12. Two group of five teams. Chaos reigns supreme. I think this is the way the playoffs are looking right now as we enter into week 12 of the college football season.
Pretty good. Texas State in there. Nah.
Throw Texas State in. Nah. We love Texas State, but they haven't won a Sun Belt game yet, and that's not quite playoff resume. That's not quite a playoff resume there. But
they were undefeated at one point. Full stadium.
At some point. They're going to win one, I believe, but not right now. I do want to move over to a couple of big firings from yesterday and today. And we're going to start off in the NBA. Nico Harrison. Finally, he's gone. The man who ruined basketball in Dallas. The man who tried to sabotage his own team, Mehrob. The man who traded away Luka Doncic in the worst trade in sports history is gone today after an alleged conversation between the owner and a fan that kind of pushed him over the edge. I doubt that's the real reason, but this is huge. Nico Harrison traded Luka away in February after making the finals the year before. Now he is no longer a member of the Mavericks organization. What is going on down there? Why did it take so long, Mehrob, for them to fire Nico Harrison in Dallas?
Thank the Lord.
Thank the Lord. Gone. Yes.
But he's gone. All Dallas Mavericks fan can take a sigh of relief because he is gone. The reason he had his job, because he got the number 1 overall pick by the luck of the draw of the NBA draft lottery. Then he got Cooper Flagg that landed in his lap, I think. That's my real take of how it went down. And then outside of that, I mean, the Mavs haven't really performed at a really high level so far. And then, I mean, it's only been a month in the season. But 3-8 through what, 3 weeks now of the NBA season? I mean, it was already clips. It was already over for Nico Harrison, but the level of talent that they brought on, he said he probably looked at the owner and said, "Oh, everything's going to be fine. We'll clean the slate. Watch how we start out at the beginning of the season." Then you see 3-8 to start the year. I mean, you can't do anything with it. You can't really say anything of it. You just look at the Luka trade that stains all of Nico Harrison's career, regardless of his tidings with the Olympic basketball team, with LeBron James, with the NBA in general. All of that record is tarnished because of one simple but groundbreaking deal in February that should have never happened and should have been an instantaneous firing. But here we are today, and it's finally over and done with.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this because the Mavericks have kind of collapsed. You mentioned 3-8 through 11 games. They were a hot kind of underdog finals pick out of the West, which wild. I mean, look, you can talk me into it, right? Because you have hopefully healthy Anthony Davis. You'll have hopefully a healthy Kyrie Irving. You'll have hopefully a really good Cooper Flagg number 1 overall pick and a good supporting cast behind those 3 guys, right? A little bit of an older team, but a team that has plenty of names to on paper be a very dangerous squad. We've seen Anthony Davis already go down. Kyrie's not going to be back until next calendar year. Cooper Flagg's been good, but he's not enough on his own. This is not the reason why he got fired. The slow start is not the reason why he got fired. And we can talk all day, Nolan, about how, this was an unacceptable trade. But I think this is a move by the owner more than anything, just to try to get any kind of positive buzz about this organization. They went into the season with plenty of positive buzz, right? The talking heads on TV were picking them to make the finals, right? ESPN had them in the top 6 and a very dangerous team, one of those dark horse teams. And now they start 3-8. This feels like a panic button move. And I'm not going to say this makes their team worse, because Nico Harrison needed to go for that trade. But if we just throw that trade out, which is hard to do, he did a really good job in his time in Dallas, right? He brought Kyrie in a move that's paid huge dividends for them, right? He made a bunch of moves around the margins to go out and get that twin tower kind of guys like Daniel Gafford, like Derek Lively, right? He made a lot of good moves. He has the ability to be a good GM, but he's never going to be a GM again. What does the legacy of Nico Harrison really mean outside of this Luka trade? Is he going to get remembered for anything else? The answer is no. But is there any chance he ever gets hired again in the NBA, Nolan?
First off, how Dallas Mavericks will view him for the rest of eternity, one word, probably a terrorist. All NBA fans, just I don't know, just horrible. He will not. If he ever gets another GM job in the NBA, quite frankly, I'd be astonished. Honestly, I'd be astonished. I could see him working for a team. Don't get me wrong. He could be like I was saying earlier before the show said, like an assistant player operations coach or something like that. But there's no way he ever has a job that has an influence on a player's just future. I don't think after what he did, it's just not possible. His time in Dallas, he traded Luka, he traded Quentin Grimes, who is now very good. He was playing great in Dallas too. Kristaps Porzingis was gone. I'm not sure if that really involved him, but Jalen Brunson. I mean, those I'm not sure if they all were direct, that big at the time. But looking back on it now, Dallas fans have started to look back on his trades and his people he got rid of and said, "Wow, I mean, this team he made no trades, kept everyone." So 4 of their starters would be Luka, Quentin, Jalen Brunson, and Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe someone else. Maybe probably not. But I mean, look at those 4. Look how well they've turned out right now. I mean, people were starting to notice that after the Luka trade, they started to go back and say, "Wow, I mean, this guy's traded away some players who are now winning championships, being the best point guard in the East, or top 5 point guard in the NBA. A guy who's averaging 20 right now in Philly." Like the people started to notice that. People will unfortunately look back. Well, not unfortunately, will look back and see that Nico Harrison was possibly he did one of not only the worst trade in NBA history, probably the worst trade in honestly all of sports history in recent memory at least. I mean, at least of the 20th and 21st century, the worst trade in sports history. It was just horrible. I remember I was in my bed at like 12 o'clock at midnight when I saw that notification come through. It's unbelievable. Yeah, he will never have a job again as a GM, and he will forever be remembered by Dallas fans as just the worst person ever.
Look, Mehrob, there's a lot of things we could go and talk about with Nico Harrison, but why now? Why this moment? Why on November 11th of 2025 did the Mavericks finally decide to pull the trigger on him?
If I'm being honest, after what I said, I mean, I looked at the Mavericks record and I said 3 of 8 start the season. I thought that could have been a reason, but honestly, Jeremy, your analysis seems like it's it's how it went down. It's just the owner that wanted to create some buzz about his franchise, to create some sort of traction for this team, to put some pressure on them, for them to change their ways. Yes, 3-8 is kind of bad, but it's been 11 games out of 82. It's 1/8 of the schedule. There is no reason that this is happening out of the blue. If it was that, it would have happened in the summertime. It would have happened over the summer, directly right after the playoff ended, right after the Mavericks were bounced out of the playoffs. But he didn't. He waited. This is another thing that came to mind while you were talking, Jeremy, was remember Nico Harrison's press conference right after the Luka trade, where it felt like he was just reading off a script, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, that's what came to mind. It seems like another move by the owner. I'm not saying I don't think it was Mark Cuban because Mark Cuban's not the majority owner anymore. But a new owner is in town in Dallas and seems to be making some moves. I'm saying all hypotheticals here, but it feels like that new owner is coming to town and making some quiet moves behind the scenes in Dallas.
Yeah, quiet moves, loud moves. Moves are being made either way. But he wasn't the only person, GM coach, to be fired this weekend. The first one, and the one that kicked off all of these festivities, we'll call it, is Brian Daboll, the head coach for the New York Giants. No longer, I should say, the head coach for the New York Giants. He was let go after a third collapse. A third collapse from the New York Giants on Sunday, this time against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are a good team. The Giants, not so much a good team. But here's what I'll say. While Brian Daboll deserved to be fired, while he absolutely deserved to be fired, he was not the problem in New York. He was not the solution, but he was not the problem in New York. There was a lot of problems with New York. First of all, Joe Schoen should not still be employed. He needs to be out of there right now. This was a pair. They came in together, they leave together, and I put more of the blame on Joe Schoen for this Giants roster than I do on Brian Daboll. Daboll worked hard to get Jackson Dart in the game, and while Jackson Dart has been playing great, he's not enough without any weapon at all. When Wan'Dale Robinson is your number one target, when Theo Johnson is your number one target, when Darius Slayton is your number one target, you're not going to be good at football. It's that simple. You need other options. You saw Scattaboo go down. You saw Malik Neighbors go down. This is a team that's incredibly hurt. It's not Brian Daboll's fault. Should he be employed right now? Yes? No. I think he should have coached until the end of the season, honestly. I don't think it's his fault. Joe Schoen needs to go. The defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, needs to go. They keep losing these games. The defense on paper is one of the best in football. You have one of the scariest defensive lines that I can remember in a very, very long time, and yet this defense consistently ranks near the bottom for points allowed. Brian Burns is putting up a really good single season, right? There's a lot of guys that are having individual success, but this defensive unit as a whole is not having success. Fire the defensive coordinator. Fire the GM. Keep Brian Daboll until the end of the season, because firing him right now isn't changing anything. It's not making this team better. They're not going to all of a sudden turn around because Daboll isn't in the building. This team, like Daboll, when you lose a coach that your team likes, it makes things worse. It makes things harder for you to compete. It makes things feel like the season is over. That is why you don't see teams fire coaches in the middle of the season that often. That is why you only see it happen when it's a dumpster fire. And this Giants team is not a dumpster fire. It's not good, but it's not a dumpster fire. This is not a move that I think should have been done right now. He was going to get fired at the end of the year. You either fire him at the beginning of the season or you fire him at the end. Or if the entire building is crumbling, you can fire him then. But not when you have a team playing hard. Not when you have a team playing together, and not when you have a team playing for a coach right now. I hate this move.
Glad to hear you get that off your chest. Sound like you needed that. Sound like you needed it. It sounded like that came from the heart. And honestly, as you're a Giants fan, it sounded like you really needed to say that. So glad you got that off your chest. I have multiple friends from the New York area, just upper New York, Connecticut, Long Island. I mean, I have friends from, they all were honestly surprised to see the firing of Daboll. They all thought, honestly, in my opinion too, I don't think he was that bad. Over his tenure, his 4 or 5 year, yeah, he didn't have a winning season. He didn't have, he had one good season, one of his first years there where Daniel Jones was, I think it was his rookie or second year, and went into the playoffs, but never really had a good team to kind of try to build New York up with. Yeah, Daniel Jones was not the best quarterback. He had his good year. Then he had the next few years were just not that good. He had no O-line. There was no defense. I mean, the team itself you guys were just a rebuilding team. He came in. He got the rebuild. He did great. You got Malik Neighbors. You got Cam Scatterby, who most likely hopefully comes back healthy to continue to be your franchise running back. You have Jackson Dart. You have a great mentor in Russell Wilson, the guy Jackson Dart. You have a great defense. You have one of the best on paper, D lines and, front seven in the NFL. I mean, he did a great job. I just don't understand why they wouldn't, like you said, at least wait to the end of the year or just have a plan. I feel like they just kind of fired him with no plan. And I just not going to work out. Like you said, he seemed like a good coach. He seems like the players liked him a lot. When he was on the hot seat, none of his players complained about him. From what I was seeing, his players, the facility, the staff, they all liked him. He seemed like a good guy with, who just seemed like a caring coach. He wanted his team, even in the dark times of the Giants' history, he wanted them to succeed. And I feel like that's what a good coach does. And firing him right now when you still have 8 weeks, 9 weeks, or I'm not sure how many weeks left in the season now. I'm lost track of time. 8 weeks left, 6. I mean, you just waited, honestly, because you guys are what, 2-8 right now, I believe.
2-8, yep.
It's just not your fault. You guys are healthy. You guys are 4-4. No, not 4-4. Sorry, like 6 and no, not 6. I'll say like 5-4, maybe 4 and 5. I think you guys could be a 4-5, 5-4 team if you guys are healthy, but.
Yeah, I think you might be putting a little bit too much on the Giants' plate there.
I don't think so. Malik Neighbors is so good. We saw him play this year.
He is. It's a tough schedule, though. It's a tough schedule.
The schedule is tough. The schedule is hard, but we saw what Malik Neighbors was doing. We saw what Cam Scadaboo was doing. We saw what Jackson Dart was doing. Those are your 3-4 pieces in your offense, and one broke his leg, one tore his ACL, and one has a concussion. Is he playing? I don't think he's even playing this week because of concussion.
50-50. We'll see. We'll see if he plays.
I mean, do you want to see Russell Wilson on that field?
I want to see Jameis Winston on that field. That's what I want to see. If it's not Jackson Dart, I want to see Jameis Winston.
Every team needs what's the word I'm looking for? A go-to third stringer who is not there to win, but to bring up the team mode, like the team up the mode, to bring up the team. Just the vibe. He's your vibe.
Bring back Tommy DeVito, right? Like this is.
Yeah, in Seattle. Is he even in the team? I don't know.
He's on New England now. He's a Patriot. Patriots are killing it right now. But this begs the question, Mehrob, because what's done is done. You can't go back to Brian Daboll and say, actually, I changed my mind. Come back to the building. I want you to coach the rest of the season. Even though that's what they should do. They need to move on. Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, is now going to be the interim head coach. He's not going to get the job. Quite simply, it's just not going to happen. The schedule is not good. They're not going to reel off a bunch of wins. They're going to be more conservative. It's just not going to be him at head coach. So where do they go next, Mehrob? My answer for that, get an offensive coach. You know what scares me? You know what scares me the most? There have been so many rumors about the Giants saying, you know what? We've got a young, exciting team that's ready to take over the league if they're healthy. But let's go get Bill Belichick. Let's bring back Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin is a name I've heard for this job opening. Tom Coughlin is like 90. He should not be in these conversations. You need to go out and get Mike McDaniel. You need to get Cliff Kingsbury. You need to get guys like that. These offensive gurus that are going to build an offense around Jackson Dart, that are going to help this team be better offensively so that they don't have to rely on the defense for 17 weeks out of the season. Mehrob, where do you see this Giants team going as far as the next head coach search goes?
I personally I just want to say I agree with you about Tom Coughlin and Bill Belichick, but I do not agree with Cliff Kingsbury and Mike McDaniel. Personally, I just can't. I'm not a big. Offense is a really good part of the team, but if you're a head coach, have them as an offensive coordinator. Let them just control the offense. But having them as a head coaching role, controlling the entire team, it doesn't work for offensive-minded guys. We've seen it with Josh McDaniels with New England. We've seen it with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. I personally think if there's a guy I would say that would be great for the job in New York, I would say Robert Saleh right now.
So here's the thing I'll counter you with. I think the best combination for head coach / coordinator is a offensive-minded head coach with a really good defensive mind at defensive coordinator, right? We're talking about your Vic Fangios on defense. You want to see examples of this that work? Look at Kyle Shanahan over in San Francisco with Robert Saleh. There you go, right? Look at the Rams with Sean McVay and his revolving door of really solid defensive minds. Started with Wade Phillips over there. Look at Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, right? These are examples of generally considered to be really good coaching staffs in the NFL. That's where you want to be. You want an offensive-minded head coach, and you want an established veteran defensive coordinator, former head coach as your defensive coordinator. That's the way I think you need to build a coaching staff. Now, that's how I would build it. If you want to build with the defense first, that's fine. I am kind of sick of building with the defense first. This is a Giants team that has always had, at least when they're good defenses, because you have to build through the trenches. That's how you win football games. Give me an offensive genius. Give me the next Sean McVay. Give me the next guy that's going to come in and all of a sudden make this Giants offense exciting. Because if you are deciding you are going to go with if you're going to go with Jackson Dart, if that's your end all be all, that's your franchise quarterback, get me a coach that wants Jackson Dart. Get me a coach that's going to make Jackson Dart successful, because as important as it is to have a good quarterback, having a system that a quarterback can thrive in is more important than anything. We've seen that with Sam Darnold over the last couple of years now, haven't we? He was not, I mean, look at Geno Smith too. He thrived in Seattle, right? He's not thrived down in New York or in Vegas, but if you get a quarterback in the right system, they can succeed. It's as simple as that. Get a coach that can put him in a system for him to succeed, which is why I think Brian Daboll was the right answer, because look at what he was doing. Get a new defensive coordinator. Get a different defensive coordinator. It doesn't matter. He's gone out of the building. There's a lot of things that the Giants can do the rest of the year, but none of them are going to matter because they've already fired their head coach and given up on the year. We are tanking for probably the defensive player out of Miami, most likely. Doesn't really matter.
Well, I was thinking about that linebacker out of Texas Tech, Rodriguez. He's pretty good.
Offensive line, there's lots of things that the Giants need, but quarterback's not really it, I think, unless they're not going to go forward with Jackson Dart, which also could be a possibility. I don't really know what's going on over there. The Giants are a big mess, Mehrob. They really are.
100%. And the last thing I was going to say was, you brought up how you want a quarterback or a coach that wants Jackson Dart. Just look at the relationship that Daboll and Dart had together while they were there. Like, there's just nothing else to really say. It's a knee-jerk move that makes no sense at all outside of, oh, you have a bad record. Didn't we lose Neighbors? Didn't we lose Scatabo? Didn't we have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston starting the season over Jackson Dart? Was that Daboll's fault, or is that the GM's fault, which I know you want to touch on so badly? Talk about Joe Schoen a little bit more.
We want him out of here. It's got to be a hard reset. We've got to have a hard reset. We've already basically committed to that. It scares me because the Giants really love to keep GMs after they fire head coaches, and it never works. It never works. But that is a conversation for another day. 2 coach openings already in the NFL. How many more will there be by the time the season ends on Bloody Monday, just about 2 months from now? But I do want to move on to a big story, probably the biggest story to be on, I guess, the airwaves right now. Gambling. It is a problem. And if you don't think it's a problem, you're wrong. It's going to be a big problem. It already is a big problem. We have seen just this year, a massive gambling scandal in the NBA, a massive gambling scandal in the UFC, which we'll touch on later this week, most likely, and a massive gambling scandal in the MLB. And that's the one I want to touch on right now. Maybe we'll just group everything together because it is all kind of related. The most recent updates to this story is the fact that Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, 2 Cleveland Guardians pitchers, have been indicted officially on these gambling charges. These charges carry up to 65 years in prison. For 2 guys, especially Class A, who was entering his prime, just 26 years old, one of the elite closers in all of baseball, coming off of a top 3 Cy Young vote as a reliever, which is insane. That never happens. He had a sub-1 ERA last year, and now he's never going to touch a baseball field again. In fact, he might spend most of the rest of his life in prison. It's never worth it. And we've had these conversations before. We've had it off air. I'm sure we've had it on air. It's going to be a problem that's going to get worse and worse and worse before it gets better. ESPN Bet finally folding, just becoming another offshoot of DraftKings/FanDuel. And there are good things coming out of this, right? The MLB scandal now has let those big guys, the big gambling companies, to say maximum $200 bet on first pitch, and you can't on pitch results, and you can't parlay it. But these things are only going to get worse because look, if all of us right now, we are the same age as these athletes coming into these leagues right now. We got in, at least gambling got legalized when I was in college. That's what happened. That was a huge thing because I like sports. I know sports. I can make some money, right? Now, I guarantee you, every single athlete that is in high school right now or younger has had that thought at least one time. I know sports. I play sports. I'm going to be good at this gambling thing. Now, not all of them are going to gamble. Not all of them are going to get addicted to gambling. Not all of them are going to have it as a problem. But there is going to be a large majority, a much larger population of athletes that have gambling problems, that have gambled and have the, itch, I should say, to gamble. You need to get rid of player props. At minimum, you need to get rid of player prop unders for everything. You can't have unders. You need to have just overs. Because if you have overs and you bet on yourself for the over, at least you can't throw a game, right? It's still not good. Let me say that. Let me preface that. It's still not good. But at least you can't ruin the integrity of the game by not trying. You need to get more than what the line says, right? So at least you're going to try to get that. Unders are a problem. Unders are the issue. You need to get rid of all of them. This, like I've said, is only going to get worse before it gets better, Mehrob. There's not a real solution to this because the gambling industry is not going to go away, and sports leagues like money, and gambling, there's a lot of money in it. So the partnership is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. What is the way to look at this? How do you take these scandals that have now popped up in every single major sport, and how do you quell it? How do you quiet it? How do you deal with the storm that is very fastly approaching in the next 5-10 years with all of these gambling stuff?
To be honest, this is something that a lot of people saw coming. Not just people from the past generation, but like even 4 or 5 years ago, right before COVID hit, right as this gambling issue was starting to get big, right after gambling got legalized and was starting to get legalized nationwide, we said, how long is it going to take for some of these sports leagues to start creating their own, like not sports leagues, but say ESPN, like the big sports coverage channels to start jumping on this? And I want to say that some of this is because of maturity and the fact that a lot of people in the younger generation, my generation specifically, are starting to get involved in this. I'm 22 years old. People between the ages of between the 18 and 24 years old that grew up with this becoming legalized are starting to get involved in this. You don't see a whole lot of the older generation. You saw it years and years ago, which is why gambling became legal again, whatever. There was a law put against it, but as soon as this became legalized, you see people around my age, around 24, 25, 26 years old now, getting involved with this. Emmanuel Class A. We've seen the UFC getting involved. We're seeing the amount of money that is being put into this right now. I don't think that there's an end to this, Jeremy, unless they just cut it out of the sport again. I mean, the only way that they can try to temper it, I'd say, is if they stop pushing it, stop the commercials, stop during games having like inside the NBA having Chuck's picks of the game, Stephen A's picks of the game, whatever. Like commentators literally talking about gambling odds mid-game, like live betting odds. It just doesn't make sense. I understand why they're doing it, but the inverse effect is happening in front of your very eyes, and it's happening in the game of sports. It's happening outside. It's having effect. Many people saying Vegas is rigging games. When you see that, you got to have some sort of thought that comes through your head that says, maybe we should stop doing this because it's starting to ruin the product. The second that starts happening is, I think, the second that this finally stops.
Yeah, I've gone on this tirade a whole bunch, and I'm on very much on the same page as you. ESPN Bet is the single most disgusting thing that has happened in the sports industry for a very long time. And it's because of the slippery slope that happens, Nolan, right? ESPN is the worldwide leader in news for sports news, right? Worldwide leader in sports. That's where everyone turns to get their little fix of sports news. You can go to other places, but the vast majority of people, they look to ESPN for their insights, for their analysis. Very quickly, it could turn bad if, Vegas says, hey, push something bad. I want to win a lot of money on this one. Now, I'm not going to put names attached to this hypothetical because that can only get me in trouble. But say they come up to any anchor that works at ESPN, and they say, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million if you put something that you definitely don't think is going to hit in your promoted parlay, right? A lot of people are going to bet that. They trust that guy, right? It doesn't hit. The sports book makes a killing. Something like that I could see happening. It's very scary, Nolan. There is going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. There are going to be a lot of things that are yet to happen. But right now, we're just scratching the surface. These guys that are getting caught up in these gambling scandals right now were already of legal age when this gambling stuff got legalized. You can only imagine how bad it's going to get literally 5 years from now. 5 years. I think that's when we're really going to start to see this explosion because it got legalized when I was 20. That's 3 years ago, right? 8 years after? Look, you're talking about guys that were 15 when it got legalized. Those are the ones that are going to be caught up the most in it. They don't know that the downsides are only going to get worse. Again, I think my solution, Nolan, is to get rid of prop bets. At least get rid of prop unders. That's the easiest solution. Is it going to solve all the issues? Absolutely not. It is not going to solve all the issues, but it's at least going to help make it harder for people to throw things because, as leagues know, when you lose integrity, Nolan, you lose everything. If your league has no integrity, why are we watching it? It's just rigged. It's wrestling. In wrestling, we know it's rigged. That's fine. That's part of it. It's an act. But football, that's a random event. We don't know what's going to happen on it. No one should know what's going to happen on it. It ruins the integrity of the league, and it ruins everything that it stands for.
I mean, look at the NBA. Just like I feel like it's the most common example. We saw obviously the Rozier situation. We saw just recently, the head coach of the Heat. His house got caught on fire. People are supposing it was the mob because Terry Rozier was obviously playing, and they believe that since he played for the coach had something to do with it. It was the mob burned his house down. Look at Malik Beasley. Look at that situation with the Pistons. His situation, he got caught gambling or supposedly gambling on his unders. All that stuff. I mean, the NBA is one of these sports right now that is facing the most criticism for this NBA betting, all these scandals. I mean, Adam Silver has been called to court to justify in front of the U.S. Supreme Court or Congress and he's not going. I mean, that's just kind of showing the integrity of what's going on in the NBA right now. Just one of the biggest sports in America, one of the biggest sports in the world, where millions of people across the world have dreams to come here and play in the best, and where the best players in the world want to come and play, and it's under investigation for gambling. I mean, it's just kind of showing what's going to happen. Obviously, Luis Ortiz been to Class A. That situation that's already happened hundreds of times in the past. Look at Pete Rose when he was a manager with the Reds. Look at all the way back in the day, like 1912 with the shoeless Joe Jackson scandal, with him literally throwing the World Series to the mob. I mean, this has happened over hundreds of years or 100 years or so. But now with all these sports betting apps getting legalized, I mean ESPN now, you don't even go on ESPN Bet, you go into the ESPN app and you will see odds under any game. I mean, it's unbelievable. When I was 17 years old, that's when sports betting got legalized for at least in Michigan. and I was able to use the Prize Picks app. That was, it was everybody could use it if you were 18. I just turned 18 at the time, and I experienced gambling. I was gambling for, I'd say, 2 months. Granted, it was only just individual players, just over unders. I couldn't do player props or in-game parlays. It was only just players, and I experienced that. For those 2 months, I probably put in $200. I probably made maybe 250 total. I probably over that 2 month span, I made $50. And I knew kids who were losing more than me, maybe winning a little more. It's just a problem. It really is. People don't admit to it, but it's an addiction. Gambling is an addiction that will ruin your life. I've seen people ruin their lives at 8 and 20 years old. I have seen kids throw thousands of dollars on individual Michigan State games and have lost money and have literally almost gone broke. It is bad. It's just a problem. All these companies are promoting it. People lose money. ESPN, like you said, is one of the richest companies in the world, owned by Disney, and they're still promoting all this gambling to help make kids win money. They're not helping kids win money. They want to help kids gamble, get addicted, make them money. It's just betting's an addiction. It's gonna ruin sports. It's gonna ruin the integrity. And in 10 years, when every sport, the NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB have all had 15 scandals combined in the next 10 years, something's gonna have to change. And in the meantime, nothing will. At least I don't know. It's a problem.
It is a big problem, and we will, I'm sure, touch on it more. We'll cover the UFC stuff and all that's going on later in the week, probably on Friday, so make sure you tune in then for that. But we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We're talking lots of NFL. We'll do NFL power rankings, NFL tiers. Excited for you to hear us about that. Then we will talk about NFL questions. Lots of big questions from last week. Coaches, should they be fired? Who's the MVP frontrunner? And more. Make sure you tune in for that and much more tomorrow morning. But we have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Nolan Jambor, and Mehrob Fatemi.